In today's lesson, we are going to talk about sequence connectors. We use sequence connectors to link events in a story. Let's look at an example without sequence connectors. Ali bought all the ingredients for a cake. He baked the cake in an oven. He succeeded. He was happy. What do you think of this essay? We can now make the story sound better and the ideas flow more smoothly by adding in sequence connectors. Ali bought all the ingredients for a cake. After that, he baked the cake in an oven. Finally, he succeeded. He was happy. Do you see the magic of sequence connectors? Now, let's look at some examples of sequence connectors. We use first of all, at the beginning, at first, for the introductions of our writing. For the body of a composition, we usually use next, after that, later, then, meanwhile, soon, while. For ending, we have finally, at the end of, at last, lastly. Next, we look at the use of firstly, secondly, thirdly, and lastly. We use firstly, secondly, thirdly, and lastly to describe a list of ideas or actions. Firstly, remember to always walk in well-lit streets. Secondly, avoid taking shortcuts. Thirdly, avoid waiting alone at a bus stop. Lastly, always stay in a group with friends. Now, let's look at the use of meanwhile, at the same time, while. We use meanwhile, at the same time, and while to talk about the events that happen at the same time. Let's look at the following examples. Lisa was putting on the curtain. Meanwhile, her father was mopping the floor. Lisa was putting on the curtain while her father was mopping the floor. Lisa was putting on the curtain. At the same time, her father was mopping the floor. Next, we look at the use of finally and eventually. We use finally and eventually to talk about the result of the event. Let's look at the following example. Finally, they helped the grandmother to bake some cookies. Eventually, they helped their grandmother to bake some cookies. Next, we look at the use of firstly, secondly, thirdly, and lastly. We use firstly, secondly, thirdly, and lastly to describe a list of ideas or actions. Firstly, remember to always walk in well-lit streets. Secondly, avoid taking shortcuts. Thirdly, avoid waiting alone at a bus stop. Lastly, always stay in a group with friends. Now, we will look at a common mistake that causes confusion between at last and lastly. Look at this example. They spend hours looking for the hotel. Is the answer at last or lastly? With the help of a local, they found the way. The answer for this question is at last. We use at last after a long process or a long wait, or sometimes a result of a series of actions. Now, let's look at another example. They wanted to give their mother a surprise. They first bought a cake at the bakery. They also decorated the house. At last, or lastly, everyone appeared and sang song. The answer for this question will be lastly. We use lastly to talk about the last idea, event, or action in a story.